everybody. Welcome to our Tech Talk. Today we are going to be discussing how to use some of Google's productivity tools to kind of organize your home life. I don't really have slides for this talk because I'm planning to walk you through several tools that we're going to be talking about today. Some of them you may be familiar with or use already, but hopefully you'll find out some new things that you can do with them. We are doing Tech Talks every Friday at noon. In December, we will be taking a break for the holidays and come back January 8th. And I should have looked up what class we're doing next week, but I will find that at the end of today's program. This class will be recorded, so if you don't make it through the whole thing, I will send out a recording to the link once it is available, probably sometime next week. But thank you so much for joining me today. It's been kind of a crazy day. Going to make sure everybody else gets admitted, and then we can go ahead and get started. So the first thing we are going to talk about, and let me go ahead and share my screen really quick so you can see what I'm working with. To use most of Google's tools, you do have to have available to you a Gmail account. Gmail accounts are free to create. Gmail, most of their tools are free to a point. In recent years, they have started charging once you reach like a certain amount of storage space. And a question you should ask with all free tools are, what is this company getting out of this? Gmail and Google, they advertise a lot of information to you. They also collect a lot of your information and sell it to third parties for other purposes. So it's just something I always like to talk about when speaking about free tools. But if you have had a Gmail account before, or if you don't have one, you can create one pretty easily. If you open up a Google Chrome window, or if you just go ahead and, if you're on another browser, go to Gmail. I am going to sign out really quick just so you can see what it looks like. So to create an account, you just select create an account. It'll ask you for some information. It used to be that they required a phone number to create a Gmail account. I don't think that is the case anymore, but you do have to have something to back your account up to in the event that you lose your password. So I'm just going to get signed in really quick to the Digital Literacy Lab account that I have. And hopefully I can remember the password. Nailed it. Okay. So probably the most popular thing that most people use with their Google account is Gmail. Gmail is a platform like any other email platform where you can compose and send emails. You can archive things. There's a few things in here I wanted to point out. This is just a dummy account that I've created for teaching classes out of. Gmail has kind of changed their interface over the years, but one thing that's really handy about Gmail is they have different tabs that you can work under. So here you can find under primary the bulk of the emails that you get from people who you know. So usually things like bills, communications between your sister or your cousins will show up here. Social is a tab where things that are kind of social in nature, like maybe your Facebook notifications, or if you are on Pinterest, like this account is, those go here. And then promotions are usually like promotional things. So if you sign up for like the Nordstrom newsletter, they'll usually go into promotions tab. One thing that I always try to do is kind of clear out my inbox because I tend to use it as a bit of a to-do list. One thing that's handy about Google is you can file things away into folders. So say we wanted to create a folder or a label to put things under. Here on the left-hand side, I can go create a label and say I want to tag everything that I get from the library with a library tab. You can also nest it under different labels, but we're going to go ahead and just create a library label here. Let me get admitted. Okay. So say I want to, I don't know if I actually hit create on that. So, oh, cool, I already have one. So say I want to organize a few of my emails so that I can find them more easily later. And I have 3 emails here from the library. I can go ahead and check them. And then up here at the top, I can add them to my library label. So later, you know, maybe after I've archived those emails, if I come over here to my library tab, I can find those emails easily. If like me, you try to get down to like a 0 inbox, but maybe you don't necessarily want to delete emails because you want to search for them later. One thing you can do pretty handily in here is select emails. So say I wanted to select these four, or if I wanted to select everything, I could just hit this box. Gmail has an option where you can archive emails. So I can hit archive, and now my email inbox is empty. I don't need to deal with those. But say I want to access them later, I can search for my label, the library label that I created, or I could search by like topic. So say I want to find security alerts. I can easily search for security alert and see all of the emails that have that in there. You can also search by other things, like maybe you're looking for stuff that just has attachments or is from particular senders. There's an advanced search in here that lets you really drill down on the stuff that you're looking for in the event that maybe you archive something that you didn't mean to, or you need to search for things that you've previously dealt with. You can also, of course, email or delete emails pretty easily. So I'm going to go over here to my promotions tab. I can check everything, hit delete. Maybe in my social tab, I have all of these Pinterest notifications. Maybe I don't want these anymore. Usually, if you open up an email, it will give you some options up here in like these little 3 dots. I can block Pinterest so they don't show me things anymore. And then there's usually an option to unsubscribe to something. So say I want to unsubscribe, I can hit unsubscribe, and going forward, Gmail will not give me emails from Pinterest, which is really handy. But say I just want to go ahead and delete all of these, I'm going to do that and hit delete. Now you will notice up here at the top, there are some advertisements. Like I said earlier, Gmail, the way that they make money is through advertising, either to you or selling your information, which again, I just like to point out, not to freak anybody out unnecessarily. So that's Gmail and most of the stuff that I use in here. If you ever have specific things that you're trying to figure out how to do on here, they do have a really handy help button up here. They also have training. So you can go through and kind of get like a Gmail for beginners rundown of things. They also have information on how to migrate old emails. So maybe you want to import emails or export emails. They have guides on how to do that sort of thing pretty extensively through their website. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, if you ever have questions during this talk, feel free to go down to the chat at the bottom of the screen, open it and just drop questions there. I'll keep an eye on it throughout, and then we'll also have some time at the end for questions. So that's Gmail. It's the thing that I use most often. If you are mostly working on maybe a mobile device like your cell phone or iPad, all of the apps we talk about today are available on your Android or your iPhone devices. I am an iPhone user, so Google's apps look a little differently for me. And there are some apps that don't have like the full capability on Apple devices that you may have if you're using an Android device. Also, apps will look very different between different services. So if you're using Gmail in a browser, it'll look very different than it would Gmail on your phone. But for the most part, they have the same capabilities between them. It's just kind of a learning curve figuring out how it works. Now, one thing I forgot to mention kind of at the beginning of this talk that I did want to talk about, I use Google Chrome for a lot of my work, just because you can very easily like add bookmarks, you can save history, and if you have your Gmail account or your Google account linked to your Google Chrome browser, it will save information between devices. So say I have my Digital Literacy Lab email address that I've created for this, and I have that same account logged in on my cell phone and my work laptop and my personal laptop and my work desktop. Between all of those devices, if they're synced, things like my history, my passwords, my credit card information will be synced across all of those. So it's really handy, particularly if you have multiple devices that you're using for things. One thing that's handy, once you get logged into Chrome, particularly if you share computers with multiple people in your household or at work, one thing you can do is add other people or other accounts to your Google Chrome. So here I can go and add a guest. And if somebody is using my computer as a guest, I think it stops sharing the screen. I can easily click guest here, and it will give them kind of a fresh version of Chrome that doesn't have all of my information saved to it. So it's a good privacy tool. You can also add things in here like passwords. You know, passwords are kind of a really frustrating thing to think about, but they're also really important. If you've ever been part of like a data breach where you've had information stolen from different services, you may have had issues with, you know, maybe you reuse passwords between platforms. Google has a password manager that they've integrated into Google Chrome that's pretty easy to use. Basically, if you go somewhere and I'm going to go ahead and go over to tulsalibrary.org. Say you have an account that you log in with often. I'm trying to think of one that I can type in easily. So say I type in my library card number and password and I hit enter. Google Chrome should ask me if I want to save my password into it. So up here you can see we have this little pop-up save password. I can either say never, don't save my password, or I can hit save, and the next time I try to log into this account, it will auto-populate that for me. If I don't want to save it, you can just hit X, and it won't. I'm going to get logged out of there really quick. So that's Gmail. The next thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is Google Calendar. I am somebody that uses a calendar almost religiously. Like if a thing doesn't come onto my calendar, it basically does not exist in my reality. So one thing that's super handy with Google Calendar is you can do a few things. You can sync it between devices. So I have Google Calendar on my cell phone. I also have it available on my computer. And to use it, it's a pretty quick process to add something here. So this is Google Calendar. And one thing I should say, and I probably should have started with this, I didn't think about the order too well. There's a few different ways you can access these different apps. Google has a pretty easy schema in place for accessing their apps. If you're using Google Chrome, the first thing that you can do is you can usually find this little 3x3 dots, and when you click on it, it will give you all of the Google apps that are available to you, or most of them anyway. You can also find the full list here. You can also directly link to them with the address. So maybe you're not using Google Chrome, or you forgot where this thing is, or you can't find it. You can just type in things directly, like gmail.com. I can also type in directly mail.google.com, and that will take me to Gmail. And if I want to get to calendar, there's a few different ways I can do it. I can type in calendar.google.com and hit enter, or I could type in google.com/calendar. And basically it's all one way to route to a place. They just try to make it as seamless as possible for you as you're navigating between different apps that they have. So once we're in Google Calendar, say we want to add a calendar event to it. This is just my Digital Literacy Lab calendar here, but one thing you may notice over here in calendars, there's reminders, there's tasks, there's birthdays, and then there's holidays in the United States. If I just have my Digital Literacy Lab calendar tabbed right here, you can see there's nothing on here because I haven't added anything, but say I want to start adding some things. So I am going to go into Create, and today I'm adding my Tech Talk Google Tools to Organize Your Home. It's today from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. You can add a time zone if you'd like. It's especially handy if you're traveling. This thing repeats weekly on Fridays. So actually maybe I'll go ahead and just call it my Tech Talk. So it's on there every Friday at noon. One thing that's handy, if you ever want to invite somebody into an event that you have going on, one thing you can do is add guests. So say I wanted to invite my personal calendar, I could go ahead and add my personal calendar, and you can see it little populated with my picture here. I could also send it to somebody who maybe doesn't have a Gmail, like I could send it to my Tulsa library. And I can also come in here and decide where it's going to be meeting. So I can add a location. Now, if this is going to be somewhere with a physical address, I can add that in. So say it's at the library, I can add that. You can also add a notification, which is handy, especially if you have a Google Calendar on your phone. It'll give you a reminder. And if you add a location, one thing that's really handy is you can actually set it up on your phone so that it will remind you when you need to leave so that you can make it there on time. Say we are not doing anything in person, you know, because there's a pandemic going on, and I want to have this available via Google Meet. I can add that, and we'll look at Google Meet in a minute, but essentially it's Google's video conferencing platform that they have. You can add that to here so everybody who gets an invitation to your event can easily find the Google Meet that you guys can get together and get onto. You can also color things on here. So say you have different types of events on your calendar. The Digital Literacy Lab, one of the library colors is red, so I'm going to make it red. You can also set your, you know, whether you're free or busy. You can set this to be a public event or a private event, which one thing that's really cool about Google Calendar is you can actually create calendar overlays that you can share with people, which we'll look at in a second. But here I have my Tech Talks that are weekly on Fridays, and I'm going to hit save. And it's asking if I'd like to send invitations to Google Calendar guests. I'm going to go ahead and hit send because I just sent them to myself. And here we can see the Tech Talk that I added. It's in red. And if I go to next week, there's the Tech Talk again. So I've got it on my calendar. You can also view the calendar a little differently. So, and this changes a little bit. Oh, yeah, okay. So I can change it from week if I want to look at my month overview. I'm going to go back to my week. And let's go ahead and say I'm going to add another thing to my calendar here. I'm going to go ahead and add walk around the neighborhood. It is beautiful outside today. If you guys don't have anything going on, go visit some fall foliage. And since we're going to be outside, I'm going to put green for my outdoor time and just hit save on that. Now, I mentioned earlier that you can create multiple calendars with Google. This is especially handy if you have multiple people that you're trying to let them know what you're doing. You can have your personal calendar, which is what we have here. But you can also have other calendars. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and add another calendar, and you can subscribe to a calendar. So maybe you're part of an organization. I'm a volunteer for an organization called Techlahoma. I can easily add the Techlahoma calendar to my Google Calendar, and I can see all of the Techlahoma events that are happening. But say I want to create a new calendar, I can hit create new calendar, and I can call it babysitting needs. You know, I often get called into babysitting for my siblings' kids. Do you need a babysitter for your kids? Please call me last. And I can go ahead and hit create calendar. And if we go back to my calendar, I can unclick Digital Literacy Lab and just put babysitting needs. And maybe I mislabeled this. Maybe I will change this to be babysitting free times or something. So maybe I want to indicate that this is the times when I'm available for babysitting my nieces. So let's say I want to say I am free from 6 to 10 p.m., which not really because we're in a pandemic and I'm not really hanging out with my nieces right now, but free to sit. I can add that on there and hit save. And say I shared this calendar, which you can easily do if you hit these little 3 dots right here. You can go to settings and sharing, and I can either make this available to the public and then it'll have a link that I can send to anybody, Or if I want to add specific people, I can go in here and add catseagraves@gmail.com. You can also set permissions. So maybe I want that other account to have the ability to make changes or manage it. I can set that to be the case. But if I only want it to see all event details, I can hit send. And once I add that calendar to my other Gmail account, I could click this box over here and see that the Digital Literacy Lab is available to babysit Friday from 6 to 10. And seeing that, you know, my sister or my brother could call me and ask, hey, can you come watch the kids for me? So it can be a really handy thing to share different calendars. And you can also show multiple calendars. Now, if you ever need help remembering birthdays, this is a really great way to do this. You can easily hit create. I'm going to put Caitlin's birthday. I can change the date. So my birthday was last month, just turned 30. It's exciting. And maybe I want to make this onto, we're going to make it purple because my birthday is exciting. We now have Caitlin's birthday on here. And you can basically just create, you know, yourself a calendar of birthdays that will show up in your Gmail. So it's a handy way to remember those sorts of things. Another thing that you can do on here is add tasks and events. And I'm trying to think. I don't usually use the desktop version here on a whole lot, so it takes me a second to find it. Tasks, okay. So one thing I could do is add tasks. And this is really handy, especially if you, you know, say you have a roommate or a spouse or something and you want to make sure that somebody takes care of a thing. So Thursdays are trash days. Trash day, take the can to the street. I can easily add that in there. But one thing I can do is I can add a date or time. So our trash days are on Thursdays. We want to make sure it's out at the street by 6 a.m. And this is a thing that repeats every week. So every week, 6 a.m. on Thursdays, we want to make sure somebody has taken the can out to the street. I can hit OK. I can also in here usually invite somebody to it. Let me see if it'll. Okay, I lied to you. I'm not seeing the option on here, but usually you can share tasks with people. There is a question on here. Can you have both Gmail and Yahoo Mail on one device? That is a great question. Yes, you can. Gmail and Yahoo Mail are usually accessed through different apps or through a browser. So if you say you used Yahoo Mail on your phone, usually there's an option to add both accounts. Either to your email platform, or you can specifically download an app for Yahoo Mail or Gmail. Sorry, I just saw that question. And sorry to the rest of you, that was a little out of left field. So I'm on here, and every Thursday at 6 a.m., I want to make sure that I get my trash taken out. So you can see here, the trash day task is on here. I can go ahead and mark it as complete when it's done, and I have remembered to take out my trash every morning at 6 a.m. Now, if I added this to a calendar that I shared with somebody, I think they'd be able to see the task too and can complete for each other, which is a handy thing on here. But Google Calendar, you can do a lot with it. And it's a handy way to share information among multiple parties. So moving on from that, I did mention Google Meet earlier. Especially, you know, a lot of us are meeting virtually for lots of different reasons. Maybe you're trying to find alternate ways that you can plan your family holidays as we're coming into the holiday season. Google Meet, you can access it a few different ways. You can go to google.com/meet. And I lied to you. You can go to meet.google.com. Okay, so apparently the google.com/meet did not work, but the meet.google.com works. Or you can always find it, again, with these app thing right here. Meet is on here. So Meet works a lot like most video conferencing platforms you've probably worked with. You know, if you use Zoom, you've probably seen that you can like schedule meetings, or you can create meetings and send out links. It's pretty easy to do. You can hit new meeting, and you can do a few different things. You can schedule it. So this will put it on people's calendars. You can also start an instant meeting that will start a meeting right now. I can even get a meeting link to share. And I think with a meeting link to share, this is a link that exists all the time. So say I have a partner or a friend that I want to share it with, I could send them this link, and anytime they want to meet, they could click in for a meeting. And, you know, I think it alerts you. Or if you have a meeting link from somebody else, you can type it in here and hit join, and it will pull up a video conference for you. Now, say we're back at our calendar. I am going to go into my Gmail really quick on my phone, and I noticed that I have a invitation from the calendar, and I'm going to hit, wrong one. I'm going to hit yes to that invitation that I got earlier. And now if we go into the Tech Talks, you can see that I have confirmed that yes, I'm coming to this. And if I were logged into my personal account, I could hit Google, join with Google Meet there, and we could both be in the meeting together, which is super handy. Like I said, if you have questions, feel free to drop them down. But Google Calendar and Gmail are kind of the things that I use the most often. And the tasks are especially handy. I put my bills that are due for the month into my personal task list, and I can go through and complete them all as I go. Now, if you have a Gmail account, one thing that you do have access to that not everybody uses as heavily as I wish they would is a tool called Google Drive. So Google Drive is a service where you can find, you can store things in it. It's a cloud service. I think they made some changes on here. Let me see if I can hit, got it. So if you've ever used services like Dropbox, OneDrive, Amazon Prime has a cloud service. Basically, cloud storage is a way where you can store information on to servers somewhere else. So I don't have this server at home. This is hosted by Google, but in Drive, they have lots of different tools that are kind of integrated into it. And when I say that, I'm going to go ahead and delete a few of these things, which I should have done earlier. I'll go ahead and leave that. But on here, say you want to create a Google Sheet. Google Sheet is kind of like Google's Excel, Microsoft Excel, except it's free to use. You don't have to have a license for it. They have lots of different types of templates that are available. They have a to-do list, an annual budget, and a monthly budget. I actually use their monthly budget pretty often to track my own spending. And once you're in here, you can see that there's lots of things that you can customize in here. You can set up your expenses and your income. You can track your transactions and then store it in your Google Drive. So monthly budget, I'm going to go ahead and label this to be November 2020. And I could share this. So maybe I wanted to share this with my partner. I could do that. Or I can close out of it, and you can see it is saved here in my Google Drive. Now, again, you can access Google Drive a few different ways. You can type in drive.google.com, or you can go into that app button that we looked at earlier and find Google Drive. They also have some other different types of platforms on here. They have Google Docs, which is kind of like Microsoft Word, so it's a word processor. Google Slides is a place where you can make presentations, kind of like PowerPoint. And then something that I've been using a lot are Google Forms. Essentially with Google Forms, you can create forms that you can send out. So maybe you're trying to organize your family holiday plans. One of my coworkers' parents came up with like the best solution I have heard yet. Everybody is going to make their own dishes at home. leave them at the mom's house. The moms are separating them out into different Tupperware, and then people can come and pick up their meals, and then they're going to do a virtual Thanksgiving through probably through Google Meet or through Zoom. But maybe they want to track and figure out who's bringing what. So I can create a Google form in here, Thanksgiving meal plan, plans. What are you making? And we can ask for questions, who dis, and make it a short answer. So whoever answers has to tell, you know, who it is. I can add a question, what are you making? And do a short answer again. There's also options for like check boxes or drop downs. You can even upload a file on here. But say I've you know, made my Thanksgiving meal plan options on here. I can even customize the color, make it orange for Turkey Day. I can see what it looks like. We have our pretty simple survey here, and then send it to people. And to share it, you can do a few different things. You can email it to them directly. So say I want this to go to me, I can type in my email address here. I can even, hey, what are you making for Turkey Day? And if they have a Gmail, you can even embed the form into the email so that they don't even have to like click a link. They could just fill it out in their Gmail account. You can also send out a link. So I could copy this and send it out to people, and then they could get access to it. But once people have filled it out, you can come over here and see the responses, and they would show up here in a handy little form for you. So if you know you're trying to track who's bringing what, this is a great way to do it without actually having to like call or text everybody. And once you've created that form, it'll show up here in your Google Drive, and we have that form that we created. Also over here, there's a few other apps, including Jamboards. I haven't used Jamboard a whole lot, but I've seen a lot of teachers use it for school projects. Basically, you can create like a collaborative workspace for people where you can like put pictures and documents in here. You can also draw on it. So if you wanted to have a collaborative drawing art project for people, you can do that. And then you can also upload things from like your Google Drive. So if you wanted to have like, I think you can embed like documents in here as well. So again, I haven't used it a whole lot, but it's kind of a fun thing to play around with. And I think that is everything I wanted to show you in here. Oh, there is one more, and this is probably the most useful thing I use with Google in planning, especially lately. Travel has been really hard this year, and most of the travel I've been doing has been in state to go hiking in different parts of the state. Google Maps is a tool that you can use to save reviews for restaurants you go to. You can find directions between places. You can do any number of things with Google Maps. But with Google Drive, you can access a tool called My Maps. My Maps are a way that you can create road trips, or say you have a friend who's coming to Tulsa and they want some suggestions for stuff you can do around town. You could create a My Map to send to them. So I actually created one for my birthday. I did like a fall foliage tour of Oklahoma and Arkansas, and I mapped everywhere I was going to go throughout the states. And I created one that I shared with my mom, who I went on the trip with. But say you are planning a road trip to go see some fall foliage. I'm going to call this fall foliage tour, and give it a description. Let's see some trees. And hit save. Now, a step that I always forget in here, there are two different ways you can access My Maps. You can go into New and More and create a Google My Maps. You can also type in mymaps.google.com, and it'll take you to maps in Google. So I always forget that step, I'm sorry. But here we are in my fall foliage tour. And let's say I am gonna add the space that I'm starting at. So I'm going to type in the place I'm starting, which I'm gonna say I'm gonna start at Central Library. And I'm gonna hit add to map. And I can call it starting point or my home. I do not live at the library, but if I did, this is what I would call it. Okay, I'm gonna hit save on there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add a second spot. Say I wanna start out at the J.T. Nickel Family Nature and Wildlife Preserve in Tahlequah. I can go ahead and hit add to map again. And if I wanna edit it, I'm gonna say stop number 1 and hit save. And then I'm just gonna add one more location. Maybe after I'm done there, I wanna go pick up some lunch in Tahlequah. There's a really great restaurant called Sam and Ella's Chicken Place, and they are doing curbside pickup. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that to my map. And add a note, pizza for lunch. Hit save. And if I zoom out on here a bit, you can see in my map, I have the place where I'm starting, the place I want to go first, and then the place I want to hit for lunch after I'm done hiking at the J.T. Nickel Family Preserve. What I can do on here is draw a line, and I can say I want to drive a driving route, or maybe you're a biker and you're adding a bike route, you can do that. I'm going to be driving on this trip. So what I'm going to do here is click my first spot I'm going to, and then I'm going to click this second spot I'm going to, and then I'm going to click the third spot I'm going to. Oh, I think I can. And here, with these 2 layers that I've made, I have put the first leg of my trip for my road trip. I've put where I'm starting, where I want to go, and then where I'm going to have lunch. Now, this is not that impressive because I know you can get into the Google Maps app and do these things pretty quickly on your phone. But if you've ever traveled in rural parts of Oklahoma, you know you don't always get cell phone service to download your maps. So what I could do here is get into my cell phone or my iPad, whatever I'm using to navigate with, and actually download these maps that I've created ahead of time, and it'll download routes so that maybe when I'm stuck in Scraper, Oklahoma, and I can't figure out how to get to Tahlequah, I could open up those maps I've previously downloaded and created, and it'll route for me, which is super handy. This is also a great way to plan day trips, or like maybe you're planning a trip to Dallas. You can put multiple spots on there and kind of figure out the best route to hit all of those places. So my maps, you can do a lot with it. I've seen people use this tool for all number of things. I have a friend who's like super into bookstores. She works in a library, so it's a weird hobby, I know. But she likes to go on road trips to different bookstores. So what she's done is she created a map that has every bookstore she's ever visited in the country. And she'll put reviews and add pictures. And, you know, maybe she's going to be traveling to Missouri or Kansas and she really wants to hit up rainy day books. She can find it in her map. But a thing that's cool about this is you can share this with other people easily. So say I wanted to share this fall foliage tour with my personal account, I can just add that in there, and you can make them an editor or just somebody who can view it and send an invite to them. So if you're planning a road trip or a day trip, this is a great way to do that. I love my maps. It's a cool tool. So moving on from that, I want to make sure I hit everything because of course I'm going out of the order that I meant to. A thing that I know a lot of people care about is when they're mentioned on the internet. There is a really fantastic tool that Google has called Google Alerts. Google Alerts is a way that you can set up keyword searches on the internet. So anytime somebody mentions maybe your name or your business, you will get notifications for it. So say in Google Alerts, which you can access google.com/alerts, you can add tags pretty quickly. Say I wanted to add my name. So anytime my name is mentioned, I would get a new alert. So I'm going to hit create alert. I can add Kat Seagraves because that's a name I go by pretty often. I can create that alert. I can add one for the Digital Literacy Lab. So anytime somebody mentions a digital literacy lab, and maybe I don't want it to be digital literacy or literacy lab, I just want it to be digital literacy lab, I can even add in these quotation marks so that it's more specifically just when they mention the digital literacy lab. I can hit a create alert for that. I can also add one for my email address. I could add one for maybe a group that I volunteer with, Techlahoma. And anytime these are, you know, somebody writes a review or a blog post or something, or I'm in the news, I'll get an alert for it sent to my Gmail account. You can also like just click on these, and if there's been new stuff on here, it would show up here. But it's basically a Google search that keeps up with the Google search for you. You don't have to repeatedly go back to Google and search Digital Literacy Lab to see what's new on the internet. There's a lot happening right now in the news. As I'm sure you're all aware, I've been like glued to my phone since Tuesday. But one thing that's really great, Google has a really nice news aggregator called Google News. And again, you can access it at news.google.com, google.com/news. There's a Google News app, but essentially it'll go through and aggregate things for you. You can save searches. So maybe there's searches that you really do quite often. Maybe you have an interest in Oklahoma COVID-19 cases. I could do a search here. And I could save this search so that I don't have to type it in every time. I could just go to my saved searches and let it do the work for me. Maybe you're interested specifically in science news. They have everything split out into different topics. And then you could search even like maybe you're specifically interested in Mars news. So you can come here to outer space and see what's up with those giant rocks in the sky. Apparently there's a new bizarre hell planet where it rains rocks and oceans made of lava, which sounds like a terrible place to be right now. But you can easily find different topics within Google News and save searches and even follow different topics. So you can easily find the news that you're interested in, and it aggregates everything for you, which is super handy. Another handy tool in Google, and again, you may use some of these things already, but maybe you are not aware that you're using them or you don't know how to access them online. Google Contacts is a way that you can save contacts to your devices or to your accounts if it's logged into Google. So I have Gmail on my phone. I also have it so that my Gmail contacts show up in my, my phone contacts. One thing that's really handy on here, you can create contacts. So say I'm going to add this girl named Caitlin Seagraves. She works for Tulsa City-County Library as a digital literacy associate. And I have her work email and I can label it work. I also have her work phone number. And I'm going to hit save on that. I've created a new contact pretty quickly. One thing on here, so I'm going to go ahead and add another contact. Her name is Kat Seagraves. And she works at TCCL as a digital literacy associate. and her personal email is that, and I hit save. One thing that's handy on here is they actually will make suggestions for you to merge email accounts, and I guess Kat and Caitlin are too far apart, so I'm going to go ahead and change that to Caitlin and Caitlin. But I can come in here, and if this were working properly like it usually does, it would suggest merging contacts between different accounts. Maybe I need to log back out and log in again, but usually it'll recommend that you can merge contacts. You can also import and export, which is super handy. So maybe you keep all of your contacts on Gmail, but you don't want to keep them there. You want to back them up somewhere else. You could export them. You can also add labels. So say I wanted to add a label here, and I want to put all of the library people I know. I can make a label called library people. And if later I wanted to find all of the contacts that I know labeled library people, I can pretty easily find them here. And finally, in my merge and fix, it's going to say we've got 2 duplicate names here. Do you want to go ahead and merge? I'm going to hit yes, and it will make it so that both Caitlins are in one contact, and you can see all of their contact information into one card, which is handy. I believe you can also share these pretty easily. Especially if you're on like a mobile device, it's pretty easy to do. You can also create favorites. But Google Contacts is a good way to keep up with people and collect addresses, which is the thing that I mostly use it for. Now, I think there are just 2 other tools that I wanted to talk about today. The first one being Google Keep, which this is a new account, so it may not show up where it's supposed to. Okay, so Google Keep here. And again, you can get to this by keep.google.com, or you can route to that app option in the top right-hand corner. But basically with Google Keep, you can have Post-it notes. I use it when I'm going to conferences. I'll like save information from conferences that I attend. So maybe I'm attending a talk called Google Tools to Organize Your Home, and I forgot paper, or I just wanted to keep notes or something. I can go ahead and put Google Keep. It seems handy. And then if I just close it, it'll just kind of go here like a nice little Post-it note. I use Post-it notes pretty regularly, but when we were working from home, I didn't have any Post-it notes. So I kind of went to a virtual Post-it note, and essentially you can type in lots of things here, like go grocery shopping today, and add that, pin it, and I know that this is a thing that I need to make sure I get done today. And then whenever you're done, you can add a reminder, you can add collaborators, you can also archive it. So say I'm done grocery shopping for the day, I can archive it and it's off of my board. But if you're ever working on a project with somebody and you need a way to like share like task list or, you know, things that you need to make sure you're aware of, this is a great way to kind of aggregate information. You can also add pictures onto here. So say I wanted to add a picture, I don't know what's on this computer. Hopefully it's nothing suspect. Let's Django March.jpg. I can add something on here like this is a picture. And we've got a nice little image on here. And again, I can archive it if I'm done. But it's a good place to keep notes. And there's also a mobile app version of it that you can use. So it's handy if you're like a quick note taker like I am. This is a good tool for using that. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention today is shopping list. There we go, shoppinglist.google.com. So the thing that is the handiest that I use on a Google tool, like in my household, is creating shopping lists with people. And they make it pretty easy to add things on here. You can also add a collaborator. So let's say I lived with this girl named Caitlin Seagraves. I could add her on here. And say we need milk, eggs, spinach, Ben and Jerry's because it's a stressful week, and taco shells. I've got a list of shopping items on here. If my roommate Caitlin was at the grocery store, she could go ahead and just put that she purchased these things, or she can be like, hey, we don't actually need eggs. Go ahead and delete that. And you can add it between households. So it's a good way to keep track of what groceries are needed in the house. I used to have this ingenious plan where we'd write a list on the refrigerator, but then I always forgot to take the list with me. So now that we've moved to a digital option, it's much easier to make sure I'm getting everything I need from the grocery store. And there's a handy way that you can use it mobily to update it as you go through the grocery store, which is handy. I think that was all of the tools I wanted to talk about today. As you can see here, Google has a lot of them, and they can be kind of confusing to navigate, but once you play around with them a bit, I really do think they can enhance your digital life to make it a little more cohesive. And one thing that's really great, they have pretty decent help articles and training. You can go more from Google and see everything that they have available. And you can see there's lots of different products. Google has a habit of buying out applications and kind of just like bunching them all together. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. If you have questions, feel free to drop them below in the chat. But hopefully there were some handy tools here today that we talked about. Next week we are going